The infamous beauty blender. If you're not familiar with what beauty blender is, or beauty sponges in general, instead of using a brush for your makeup applications such as your powders, your creams, your highlighters, your concealers, you can use an actual sponge instead of using a brush. Some people like the sponges because it doesn't leave that streakiness that some brushes may leave. Also, the sponges are a little bit more compact than having to tug around a long brush. And some people just really love their sponges. I've heard people say they will never use another brush for their foundation application ever again since they have went to beauty blender. Now this is my beauty blender. It's like a size of an egg. When I apply my makeup application, when I say makeup application, I'm not speaking of eyeshadow. I do not use beauty blender to apply eyeshadow. It's for what I specified earlier. When I use this, I wet it. This is a beauty blender in its dry state. What you want to do is just wet it a little. You don't want to drench it. You don't want it to be completely wet inside out. You just want to dampen it a little bit. What's going to happen when you dampen this, it's going to get larger. It's going to be about twice this size. Right now, like I said, it's in its dry state, so you're really going to be able to get a grip onto it because it's going to be larger. And this is just the bomb. It's really spongy, really soft. It doesn't take a lot of pushing and dabbing to blend out your application. You don't have to really grab and be so rough with it. It just blends out so beautifully. It really, really, really does. Now, I know a lot of you guys say, why would I spend $20? I believe it's $20, but I wanted to have Sephora online so I can just make sure that I'm giving you guys the right price because I purchased mine some time ago. Yeah, one sponge is $19.95 at Sephora. And that's just for the sponge itself. Some of you guys may feel like $20 for a freaking sponge. Are you serious? But have you seen the prices of makeup brushes? A really good makeup brush is kind of pricey. Yeah, especially when you're looking at MAC or anyone else, Makeup Forever, the brushes are kind of pricey. So you pay for what you get. This sponge is going to last you a few years. You don't have to worry about getting another sponge, using different brushes. You can just use the same brush for everything. Now, before I purchased this, I must admit that I did go and shop for a dupe. What someone mentioned was a dupe, and it is this. I purchased this from Target. This is Sonia Kashuk. The shape is pretty much the same. It just has the little crevice going around it, but pretty much does the same thing on both sides, the pointy tip and then the larger end for the full face application. Feeling them, they feel completely different. This is very soft, very spongy. This is not as spongy and this is not as soft. It takes a little bit more to be able to mash this down. And I said, well, how can I show you guys what the difference is as far as how spongy they are? So I figured I'm going to go ahead and just grab a glass, and I'm going to go ahead and just lay the glass on top, and I want you guys to see how the glass just goes down. This is on the beauty blender sponge. Now I'm going to go ahead and grab the Sonia Kashuk and do the same thing so you guys can see. And the glass pretty much just sits on top of the Sonia Kashuk. It really doesn't go down like the beauty blender. It kind of just sits on top. So if you're thinking about material, something to kind of compare it to, I would say this is more sponge. I would say this is a little sponge mixed with rubber. Now, as far as application is concerned, I would say this: if you cannot afford or you choose not to pay $20 for the Beauty Blender sponge, you can definitely opt out for the Sonia Kashuk. I'm not for certain what the price was on this, but I'll leave that somewhere in this video. You can go ahead and grab this, but I would mention this to you. If you have ever put a cleansing product or anything on a sponge, you know that the sponge is going to soak it up. If you've ever put a cleansing product on something that's rubber, it's just going to slide off. It's not going to soak into rubber, if that's a way of putting it. So with that being said, when you apply your makeup application with the Beauty Blender, it's going to blend out more evenly as opposed to the Sonia Kashuk. When you apply with the Sonia Kashuk, it's really not going to blend out as well as the Beauty Blender. So this is how another comparison I can make to it. You take foundation and you go like this and you blend it with your finger. Blend it all over your face. That is what the Beauty Blender is going to do for you. When you take your finger and it has foundation on it and you go like this, that is what the Sonia Kashuk is going to do for you. It's going to require more work, more blending, because it's not going to be evenly distributed throughout your face. Hopefully the analogies I'm giving you guys make sense. I tried to think about the best way to explain the difference between the two to you, and this is what I came up with. So I hope it helps you guys. Now, also, I went ahead and grabbed Makeup Forever Beauty Sponge. I've had these sponges for I don't know how long. Makeup Forever, the same thing. Now, I would say the Makeup Forever sponge is so, it feels like fur or something. It feels like silk. It's so smooth. I'm not sure what it's made out of, but it feels like silicone. It just feels really, really smooth and silky in comparison to both of these. It's just, it feels really, really great. Also, when you look at the Makeup Forever sponge and you look at the other sponges, you can see that the Makeup Forever doesn't have those little holes in it like a normal sponge does. It's just completely smooth. These, you can see the pores or the holes in the sponges. The Sonia Kashuk, you can definitely see them a little bit more. They're more prominent than the Beauty Blender. The Beauty Blender is really, really small, but the Sonia Kashuk is like, whoa, ho, really, really large. The Makeup Forever, you really can't see it at all when you're looking at it from this angle. Now, if you look at it here, of course, it looks just like the Beauty Blender. Now, I really like this sponge because this sponge, as you can see, it's sharp. So really getting underneath that eye, it goes all the way up with no problem. With the Beauty Blender, it's not as pointy, so you gotta kind of play with it a little more. It's a little bit more difficult. I am glad that I have this one just for that. And in my opinion, the application is fairly the same. I really don't use this for all over application. Like I said, I just like to really use the pointier end to get into those hard to reach areas. But this is a pretty good sponge too, and I believe this, I'm not for certain the price, but I'll leave that in the box with the Sonia Kashuk. And here are some more dupes if you guys are really looking to shop on a budget and you want a bunch of them, but you don't want to pay all that money. I grabbed these. It's actually a set of 4 from Amazon. These ones here really take on the shape of the Beauty Blender. They're a little bit more rounder than the Beauty Blender, but as you can see, they all kind of look alike, have the same shape. And ironically, these take on the shape of my Sonia Kashuk. Ironically, I didn't do that on purpose, they just happen to look that way. But these are a little bit smaller than the Sonia Kashuk. And these pretty much all feel the same as the Sonia Kashuk. The same identical way. They're not as soft as the Beauty Blender, but they feel identical to my Sonia Kashuk. I would say my Sonia Kashuk is probably a little bit more softer than these. These are the firmest out of all of the beauty sponges that I have. These are definitely the firmest. But the good thing about these 4 that I purchased from Amazon, they were only $5, maybe under $5, but you get all 4 for like $5. I have MAC brush cleaner, and I've tried that on my brushes. It really didn't work. I've tried regular hand soap, antibacterial hand soap. That didn't work. I tried Johnson's baby shampoo. That didn't work. Still had some of the foundation and dark color on there. So I just grabbed the blender cleanser from Beauty Blender, and this is a solid, and this is what it looks like. It just looks like a big white hard piece of soap. I purchased this instead of the liquid because if you use this, it will allow your Beauty Blender to last you for 6 years. This is what the rep told me at Sephora. The cleanser, which is the liquid form of this, works just as well as cleansing your Beauty Blender and your sponges, but it is going to break your sponge down. Your sponge is not going to last as long. So if you want something to clean your sponge with, I recommend getting the solid as opposed to the Beauty Blender liquid. Now, I purchased these separately. We're speaking about price. This was $19.95. This was $15, I believe. $15, $16. So I spent about $35 for these two. When I went online to Sephora's website, I said, well, it has to be some kind of option where you can get something bundled together so you don't have to spend $35, $36. And what Sephora has on their site is a limited edition Beauty Blender in white with the solid cleanser for $50. And it also comes with a little carrying case pouch for both. And I said, well, $50, that's a little steep. So I kept looking, and the only other bundle or deal that I saw where you can purchase everything as a set was with the liquid Beauty Blender. So I don't feel bad purchasing them separately because Sephora didn't have a deal where I can get them in a set. So I recommend definitely, if you have this, you have to get their cleanser. It's just not going to cleanse the sponge any other way. The good thing about this cleanser also is great for your other sponges that you have. You can also use your makeup brushes with this cleanser as well.